Bonjour et bienvenue. Hello and welcome. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about the two French accents that are accent aigu and accent grave. So in this part 2 of the French accents, we will talk about some other accents that are used in the French language. Now, without any further ado, we will quickly go through the topics that we are going to cover in this lecture. So the first one will be the accents in the French language. After discussing about these accents, we will move on to the homophones. After discussing about the homophones, we will move on to the French accents on the keyboard. And in the last, I will give you the list of vocabulary that I have used in this lecture. So let's start this lecture with the accent circumflexe. In French, we call it as l'accent circonflexe. I am repeating it again. L'accent circonflexe. The accent circumflexe looks like this. So it seems to me as a tiny little hut, isn't it? Now let's discuss about this accent in more details. So starting from the point number 1, and the point number 1 states that the accent circumflexe is placed on the letters E, A, I, O and U. That means we can only place this accent circumflexe on the vowels, right? Now to show how we can actually implement this accent on the vowels, I have taken some examples. Check out the very first example. In French, we pronounce it as honnête, honnête, honnête. So in this example, you can observe that the accent circumflexe is placed on the letter E, right? Now look at this second example. In French, it is pronounced as gâteau, gâteau, gâteau. So in this example also the accent circumflexe is placed on the alphabet A. And now have a look at the third example, that is paraître, paraître. I am repeating it again, paraître. And in this example also we can observe that the accent circumflexe is placed on the alphabet I. So in all these examples we can clearly observe that the accent circumflexe is placed only on the vowels. We cannot place the accent circumflexe on the consonants. Alright? So that's all about the point number 1. Now let's move on to the point number 2. So here we have our point number 2. Now this point number 2 is very interesting and I really want you to pay attention towards it. This point states that by imagining S after the accent, we can often deduce the meanings of unknown French words. According to this point, we can often deduce the meanings of unknown French words having this accent circumflexe just by imagining an S after the accent. Isn't it really interesting? Now let's take some examples to understand this case in a better way. So here we have our examples, and if you will observe all these examples, you will find that I have taken the French words having this accent circumflexe. Observe these 3 examples. Now we will try to implement this point number 2 in all these examples one by one. So starting from the very first example, in French it is called as forêt, forêt, forêt. So according to the point number 2, we will simply imagine the alphabet S after the accent circumflexe, right? So here we have the accent circumflexe in this word, and after imagining an S after this accent circumflexe, we will get the word forest. So the meaning of this French word forêt is forest. It's quite easy to deduce, isn't it? Come on, let's have a look at another example, that is fête, fête, fête. So in this example also we will imagine an S after the accent circumflexe, right? So here we have the accent circumflexe in this word. And after imagining an S after this accent circumflexe, we will get fest, or we can say festival. So the meaning of this French word fête is festival. Now have a look at the third example, that is hôpital, hôpital, hôpital. So in this example also we will imagine an S after the accent circumflexe. So here we have the accent circumflexe in this word, and after imagining an S after this accent, we will get hospital, isn't it? So the meaning of this French word hôpital is hospital. So I really hope that you enjoyed this trick. Now, before we move on to the point number 3, I want you to keep in mind that the point number 2 is not valid for all the words present in the French dictionary, because there are many words having this accent circumflex and we cannot deduce their meanings just by imagining the alphabet S. This trick will definitely help you in some cases, but not every time. Alright? So here we are done with the point number 2. Now let's talk about the point number 3. So here we have our point number 3. And the point number 3 states that accent circumflex is also used to differentiate between the homophones. Now, what do we mean by homophones? As we have discussed in the previous lecture, homophones are the words that have the same pronunciation but different meanings and sometimes spellings. Now, to make you clear about how exactly this accent circumflex differentiates between the homophones, I have taken some very commonly used French homophones. So have a look at the very first pair of homophones, that is du, which means due or ode, versus du, which means of the, from, some or any. Now, if you will observe carefully, we have differentiated these homophones with the accent circumflex. Check out, in this first one, we have the accent circumflex on the alphabet U, and now look at this second one. Here we don't have any accent, right? And another thing to note here is that they have the same pronunciation, but the meanings are totally different. Now let's talk about them in detail with the help of some examples. So here we have the very first example. Now I am going to pronounce this example in French. Alright? Le travail est dû pour juillet. I am repeating it again. Le travail est dû pour juillet. It means the work is due for July. So in this example, this word due is having the sense due, that the work is due for July. Now have a look at this second example. Je veux du café. I am repeating it again. Je veux du café. It means I want some coffee. So in this example, this word due is having the sense of some, that I want some coffee. So I really hope it is clear to you that how this accent circumflex differentiates between these homophones. Now for more clearance, let's take one more pair of homophones, that is croire, which means to grow or to expand, versus croire, which means to believe. Now, if you will observe this pair of homophones, we have differentiated these homophones with the accent circumflex. Check out the very first one. Here we have the accent circumflex on the alphabet I. Now check out the second one. Here we don't have any accent circumflex. And one more thing to note here is that they have the same pronunciation, but their meanings are totally different. Now let's talk about them with the help of an example. So here we have our example. Son entreprise croit d'année en année. I am repeating it again. Son entreprise croit d'année en année. It means his business is growing from year to year. So in this example, the word croit is having the sense of grow, that the business is growing from year to year. Right? Now check out another example. Elle croit qu'elle réussira cet examen. I am repeating it again. Elle croit qu'elle réussira cet examen. It means she believes he will pass this exam. So in this example, this word croire is having the sense to believe, that the person is believing that another person will pass this exam. So that's all about the homophones. And I really hope that it is clear to you how this accent circumflex actually differentiates between the homophones. Now let's talk about another accent which is really very interesting. And in French it is called as la Sadie. La Sadie. The accent Sadie looks like this, and it seems to me as a tiny little tail, isn't it? Now let's talk about this accent in more details. So starting from the point number 1. The point number 1 states that the accent Sadie is only placed under the alphabet C. So according to this point, we can only place this accent Sadie under the alphabet C. And to show you the implementation of this accent in French words, I have taken some examples. So have a look at the very first example on the screen. In French it is pronounced as garçon, 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 and garçon means boy. Now have a look at the second example. In French it is pronounced as français, français, français. It means French. Now have a look at the third example, and it is pronounced as déçu, déçu, déçu. Déçu means disappointed. So in all these examples, if you have observed carefully, you must have found that the accent Cedille is only placed under the alphabet C. So that's all about the point number 1. Now let's talk about the point number 2. The point number 2 is very important, as it is talking about the function of this accent. This point states that the function of the accent Cedille is to give the letter C an S sound when it precedes the alphabets O, A or U. So according to this point, whenever the alphabet C precedes the alphabet O, A or U, it will give the sound of alphabet S. For example, if we talk about this French word, it is having the accent Cedille and it is preceding the alphabet O, right? So as the alphabet C with this accent Cedille is placed before the alphabet O, it will give the sound of the letter S. So kindly observe the pronunciation of this French word. It is pronounced as façon, façon, façon. Hence, we can clearly observe the S sound because of this accent, right? Now, I want you to observe the pronunciation of these 3 examples mentioned below. In French, the first word is pronounced as garçon, garçon, garçon. So here you can observe clearly that the accent Cedille is placed before the alphabet O, hence it will give the sound of the letter S, right? Now check out the pronunciation of this second French word. In French it is pronounced as français, français, français. So here also you can observe that the alphabet C with the accent Cedille is preceding the alphabet A, hence it will give the sound of the alphabet S. Now observe this third example. In French it is pronounced as déçu, déçu, déçu. So in this example also you can observe that the alphabet C with the accent Cedille is preceding the alphabet U, hence it will give the sound of the letter S, right? So that's all about the point number 2. Now let's talk about the point number 3. So the point number 3 states that no need of Cedille before I or E. So according to this point number 3, there is no need of accent Cedille before the letters I or E. Now this is quite strange, isn't it? We are using this accent Cedille under the letter C when it precedes the letters O, A or U. But this accent Cedille is not needed whenever the alphabet C precedes the alphabet I or E. The reason behind it is pretty simple. Whenever the letter C precedes the alphabets I or E, it already gives the sound of letter S. Is it confusing? Don't worry. I have taken some examples to make you understand. Now I want you to observe these 3 examples. You will find that in the first 2 examples, the alphabet C precedes the alphabet I, and in the third example, the alphabet C precedes the alphabet E. Now I will tell you the pronunciation of these French words one by one. So starting from the very first one. In French it is pronounced as acide, acide, acide. So if you have observed the pronunciation of this word, the alphabet C here is already giving the sound of alphabet S. Listen to it once again. Acide, acide. So this C here is already giving the sound of alphabet S, right? So the meaning of this word acide is acid. Now observe the second word. In French it is pronounced as ciel, ciel, ciel. So in this example also, the alphabet C is giving the sound of alphabet S, right? Ciel means sky. Now observe this third example. In French, it is pronounced as centre. 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 So in this example also, the alphabet C is giving the sound of alphabet S, right? Centre means center. So that's all about the point number 3, and here we are done with the accent Sadie. Now let's move on to another very important accent, and in French it is called as l'accent tréma. L'accent tréma. So l'accent tréma looks like this. So it is nothing but just two little dots that are aligned together side by side. Now let's talk about this accent in more details. So starting from the point number 1. So the point number 1 states that the accent tréma is placed on the letters E, A and U. So according to this point, the accent tréma is placed only on the letters E, I, and very rarely you will find this accent on the alphabet U. Now to make this point more clear, I have taken some examples for you. So have a look at the very first example on the screen. In French it is pronounced as maïs, maïs, maïs. It means sweet corn. Now have a look at the second example. In French it is pronounced as Noël, Noël, Noël. So Noël means Christmas. Now have a look at the third example. In French it is pronounced as knife, knife, knife. It means knave. So you can observe in all these examples that the accent tréma is placed only on the alphabet E and I, right? So here we are done with the point number 1. Now let's talk about the point number 2. So the point number 2 states that accent tréma indicates that the vowel is to be pronounced separately from the one immediately before it. So according to this point number 2, whenever you are having two vowels next to each other in a particular word and one of which is having the accent tréma on the top, it changes the pronunciation of the complete word and it seems that we are pronouncing the two vowels separately. So to understand this point number 2 in a better way, let's get back to our examples once again. So kindly observe the pronunciation of this first example. In French it is pronounced as maïs, maïs, maïs. So as you can observe, here we are having the accent tréma on the top of the letter I. That's why we are pronouncing the two vowels A and I separately. Now check out the pronunciation of another example. Noël, Noël, Noël. So here we are having the accent tréma on the top of the alphabet E. That's why we are pronouncing the two vowels O and E separately. Now have a look at the third example. Knife, knife, knife. So here in this example, we are having the accent tréma on the top of the alphabet I. That's why here we are pronouncing the two vowels A and I separately. So that's all about the point number 2, and I really hope that it is clear to you. So here we are done with the accent tréma. Now suppose if you want to type something in French, whether it be an email or a letter or anything directly from your keyboard, then you might get stuck with the French accents. So here are the key codes to type l'accent circonflexe, l'accent tréma and l'accent Cedille. So I would encourage you all to pause the video for a while and note them down. So I hope that you have copied the key codes. Now I will show you the list of vocabulary that I have used in this lecture, and I would encourage you all to pause the video for a while and note down this list in your vocabulary notebook. Thank you.